Get a copy of that for yourself, please do so. It's nice. We have some extra copies available. So, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Yam Brahma Varunendra Rutra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha Padakramopanishadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam Navidusura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. So let us chant 5 verses, starting with chapter 4, verse number 38. Nahi jnanena sadrisham. You can just follow after me. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate Tatsvayam yoga samsiddha Tatsvayam yoga samsiddha Kalenatmani vindati Atmani vindati Shraddhavan labhate jnanam Shraddhavan labhate jnanam Tatparah samyatendriyaha Tatparah samyatendriyaha Jnanam labdhva param shantim Jnanam labdhva param shantim Achirena digacchati Achirena digacchati Ajñascha shraddadhanascha Ajñascha shraddadhanascha Samshayatma vinashyati Shayatma vinashyati Nayam lokostina paraha Nayam lokostina paraha Nasukham samshayatmanaha Samshayatmanaha Yoga samyasta karmanam Yoga samyasta karman Jnana sanchinna samshayam Jnana samchinna samshayam Atmavantam na karmani Atmavantam na karmani Nibhadnanti dhananjaya. Then the last one of the word of the 4th chapter. Tasmat ajnana sambhutam Jnana sambhutam Hritsam jnanasinatmanaha Hritsam jnanasinatmanaha Chitvainam samshayam yogam Chitvainam samshayam yogam Atishthotishta Bharata Om Tat Sat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Shiti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Shri Krishna Arjuna Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga Sannyasa Yoga Nama Chaturtho Dhyayah. So we're coming to the end of the fourth chapter, which is called the Jnana Karma Samyogaha. And it'll be interesting once we finish the fourth chapter, then we will quickly revise the whole chapter as we have done before. It'll be useful. So today we go into some detail about verse number 38. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. So this is a very popular verse, and one which Swami Dayanand Ji has adopted as kind of like the main one to represent the Sailorsburg ashram in many of the in many of the publications this verse comes up. So it's an important one in that sense. So let's go into that. So if we analyze our lives, what we find is there is a kind of a flow of our actions and the results of the actions. So we are continuously doing as a karta and as a bhokta. So we are doing new things, and at the same time we are reaping the results of our previous actions. But this is a cycle that goes on and on and on. And it can be proven that there is in fact some logic behind our current state of enjoyment or non-enjoyment, as the case may be, and the previous actions that were done. So this is what would be called a punya karma or a papa karma, a good action or not so good an action, which determines my current state of enjoyment or lack thereof. So this is, we have already covered that and so on. There's nothing new to say about that. And then the other thing is that one thing we can do without being taught, but we can figure it out to a large extent, and then people can even give us some guidance on this, is that you can do some corrective action to eliminate the bad effects of previous actions. Typical example is that if you're overeaten and you have a stomach problem because your system cannot tolerate the extra food that you have put in, then there are antacids available in the marketplace, which would reduce, perhaps not eliminate, but reduce the effects of acidity, hyperacidity, because of the overeating. So this is what is called prayaschita karma. Prayaschita karma means that you have some corrective action. And as we have discussed it before, one very powerful prayaschita karma, supposing on this, the overeating was at a physical level, but supposing you are having a quarrel with someone, let's say with a spouse, and there is some lingering bad bad vibes between so on and so forth. And usually what happens is that nobody wants to admit that they were wrong. You say, no, you did this, you said that. He says, no, that's because you said that. That's not my fault. Those kinds of things happen. But in dealing with that, one very powerful prayaschitta karma at a mental level is to sincerely say, I am sorry. And in fact, sometimes it's interesting, even if you internally believe that really that was not your fault, but just terminate this argument and be sincere about it and say, okay, I don't realize that I did it, but in case I did, I'm very sorry. I shouldn't have really done that, and I'll be very careful in the future. So when you do that, amazing things happen. Really, a lot of the conflict is resolved by just your saying, I am sorry. So why we say all this is because what it means is that through karma, you can solve many problems of your life. You can, by the right action, either physical action or mental action, by saying sorry or changing the course of your life, etc., etc. Again, nothing much to say about those. But what happens is that you cannot completely resolve all problems in your life through karma. Well, one thing that happens is, while you are in the process of resolving the effect of the previous karma, you're gaining new ones. You are still in the process. So it's a relative purification. So this is what is called pavitram. So the word here, pavitram, refers to a purification. So purification in the sense that anything which is a spot on you, like for example, supposing your clothes are dirty and you want to put it in a washer, then that is to make the clothes pavitram. You wash off all of the dirt and you make it nice and clean again. So similarly in life also, if you lead a nice clean life where you are at peace with yourself, which is more important. This is the interesting thing is that you can be at peace. It's easier to be at peace with others than to be at peace with yourself. Because, this is what happens in our earlier parts of our life. We fight a lot and we pick up quarrels and so on and so forth. Then towards the latter part of your life, you say, forget it. It's okay. I'm just the way it is. Or it's very possible you may actually pick up some bad habits where you have grudges, you hold grudges. That's a separate thing. Pavitra means you lead a peaceful life where you don't have conflicts for others. But to have conflicts with yourself is much more difficult to take out. You sometimes forgive others, but you have a feeling of guilt or some unforgiveness about yourself, which is harder to take off. So the real pavitram is to be peace with yourself, just to accept yourself as you are. And it is not possible according to this particular verse. So understand the importance of this verse. It is not possible to be completely at peace with yourself as long as you have a faulty conclusion about who you are. So this we are going to explore a little bit more. What does that mean? The faulty conclusion about myself. So we begin our life with having a faulty in the sense that not a realistic, not a real assessment about who we are. And we continue in our life with this faulty assessment of who we are. And as long as that is the case, the pavitram can be relatively effective but not absolutely effective. Cannot be done. And the real pavitram will be when you remove the faulty assessment about yourself. Who am I? And so that is what is being pointed out here. He says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. So let's look at the word meaning of that first. Nahi, he means certainly not. No way. Absolutely not. Definitely. Indeed. Vidyate na pavitram. There is no other purification way, no purifier. Iha. Iha means in this world. Sadrisham jnanena. Like self-knowledge. Here we can add the word self-knowledge. And so sadrisham jnanena na vidyate. So let's just look at the first line. In the second line we will study later. So this is the word meaning. Now let's look at the real meaning of this. So when we say that as a faulty conclusion about ourselves, you cannot fully become pavitra. What do we mean by that? So let's look into that. This is an important topic which we have not new, but from time to time it appears to be new. So let us look at who we think we are. So this is, for each one of us, this is what is called I identification, the I thought. This is also called ahankara, the I thought. In fact, I was just thinking yesterday when I was just thinking about teaching this class, I would like to say this, you know, the I thought, we have seen the word I thought before, but let me retranslate that into an idea of I. The idea of I. Conclusion of I. Who am I? This is the I thought. This is the idea of I. So this idea of I, ahankara, is different from I. So there are two things involved. One is I, the sakshi, the Chaitana Vastu, the pure consciousness. This is I. Then you have an idea of I. So these are two things which we get mixed up on. So we cannot distinguish between these two. So the idea of I is sitting on top of I, based on I, and that is the only identification I have, the idea of I. And the idea of I is the one that becomes the karta and the bhokta. I did it. I am suffering because of that, or I am enjoying because of that. So in all of my experiences, the basis of all of that is the idea of I. I went to sleep. I am waking up. How are you feeling? I am not feeling that great. Or I'm relieved, or I'm hopeful. All of those kinds of actions, everything, is all based on my conclusion about this is who I am. And Vedanta says there is a problem here somewhere. And the problem is that the idea of I is not I. And as long as you are functioning as the idea of I, your karmas cannot completely make you free. No pavitram is possible. Completely. You can do it to a certain extent, but not completely. You can do it completely only if you understand that the idea of I is just a projection. There is no reality to it. In fact, it is borrowing the reality of the I to constitute the idea of I. So similarly, in our example that we have taken many times before, space here is the I, and the room space is the idea of I. And as long as this person who is a room space has the idea of the room space, he'll never be completely free. Because it is not able to distinguish between space and room space. And in fact, it is the room space is based on space, but in a way different from it. This is the situation in our life. So when you say I, you are representing two things with one word. One is the I, and the other one is the idea of the I. And in a way, another way to look at it, so I think we may have, I don't know, I mentioned this in this class or some other class, there are several ways of looking at how this phenomena takes place. So one is called avacchinnavada. So avacchinnavada means the way of explaining the mistake from the standpoint of enclosure. So the space and the room space is representing the avacchinnavada, that the reality is being looked at in a different way because of some seeming enclosure. So your identification is not with the space. In fact, the room is enclosed in the space, But your thinking is that the space is enclosed in the room. So this is called avacchinnavada. Then the other one is what is called pratibimbavada. Pratibimbavada, bimba and pratibimbavada is the way of explaining this phenomena through reflection. So when you are standing in front of the mirror and you are looking at yourself through the mirror, so your reflection you are called bimba, means the real person. And you are looking at the mirror through pratibimba, through the reflection. And your evaluation of yourself is based on the reflection. That's how you look at yourself. I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but it's interesting. If you look at yourself in the mirror, not only are you looking at the physical reflection of the mirror, you're also putting your own subjective reality on top of that. This is why it happens very often as you're growing older. When you're young, it doesn't happen. But as you're growing older and you get a photograph taken, and the photograph is, immediately now, you don't have to get Kodak processing after 4 weeks or something like that. You see it right away. And you say to yourself, oh my God, is this the way I look? I didn't know that. I'm growing so old. This is awful. Well, didn't you look at yourself in the mirror this morning? Yes, I did. But why didn't you think about that? Because when you think yourself in the reflection in the mirror, first of all, the mirror is supposed to not lie, but you impose your own ideas. You don't think of it. The camera, on the other hand, is very interesting. It is purely neutral. It has no samskaras, no subjectivity or anything. Anyway, this is what is called pratibimbavada. Now, the idea of I can be viewed in both ways. Both ways meaning you can do it as avacchinnavada, where it is being enclosed by some sense of limitation. So, for example, the idea of I is defined by your physical body. Yeah, it's very obvious. You'll say, supposing you get, you get on the phone and you say, how tall are you? Oh, I'm 5'10". Look at this. I am 5'10". That means the idea of I is defined by my physical height. It's not true. This is exactly like saying I'm the room space. Not true. You should, if somebody says, how tall are you? You should, what the real answer should be? I'm infinitely tall. So no. You don't understand my question. How tall are you? So I'm telling you, I don't have any height. The transactions will not be possible. The other person will put the phone down and say, some crazy person is there on the other side. He's not answering my question. He's saying he's infinite. And you're telling the truth. So you say, I'm 5'10". And now everything is okay. Yeah, okay, I write it down. You're 5'10". So the idea of I is defined by my physical body and also my subtle body. Subtle body. So really speaking, in your mind, you may find some agitation, some kind of a discomfort with something. You're perturbed. And you immediately say, I am not happy. The idea of I is the idea of I. And so really speaking, this is one thing. And the other thing is the I. And the interesting thing is, you cannot have the idea of I without I. Cannot have it. It's very much like saying you cannot have a golden ornament without gold. Not, you have to, this is the mithyatvam of it. That really speaking is a very beautiful thing to see that the golden ornaments borrows everything from gold. Normally when you say, a word has its own content, so you can say that gold is a word, and ornament is another word. So you say there are two things, ornament and gold. You have your own properties and I have my properties. Looks like saying table and chair. The chair has its own property and the table has its own property. So similarly, when you say gold, gold should have its own property, its luster, its weight, and so on and so forth. And then you say ornament, ornament should have its own property. That doesn't happen. So you say, okay, you start describing it. And then you interview the ornament. Say, please describe yourself. He says, well, I am I'm 4 ounces heavy. So the gold says, but that's my weight. You're borrowing things from me and you're calling it something else? So he says, oops, okay. What about your luster? Well, I'm kind of like yellowish and shining. He said, that's mine. Well, don't you just should have your own property? Actually, the ornament does not have its own, it just has a name and a form, just a way of transacting. So the idea of I is the same way. It doesn't really have any substance. It borrows all of the qualities from the I. That it is there is borrowed from I. That it is in the form of knowledge is also formed from I. Everything is borrowed from I. But the two get mixed up together. And the difficulty is that for two things to be separated, you must have some way of looking at the separation. Here Swami Maheshanji gives an example. He says, supposing you bring a very ill person into the hospital. Very ill, almost like, gone. So then the doctor now has to determine whether, because the ambulance bring this person, he is now completely not moving and hardly even breathing. And you take him to, and now there is a physician who is very capable of doing this. He immediately starts to say, is this person alive or not? So there are ways of finding out. You can put your finger next to to see whether there is any breath coming. You can feel the pulse. There's like 4 or 5 things that you can do, the temperature of the body. And at if you find that the signs of life are not there, you declare him dead. So the doctor says, "I'm sorry to say, he's gone." So there, the lifeness in the body can be inferred and seen directly. Not only inferred, you can see directly that it is there. Here is the difficulty. The I and the idea of I are not easy to distinguish like this. Like you can for the life. In fact, it can be saying, when you say, "I'm alive," you need the idea of I to tell whether you're alive or not. And when you say, "I am alive," it is not the complete truth about yourself. It's a very interesting thing. So when you say that I'm alive, you say I'm telling the truth. It's very interesting in this oath taking. I'm telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, is how the oaths are. So when you say I am alive, this does not fulfill the idea of I. When you say, "Who are you? Please describe yourself," and you say, "I am alive," it is not the complete truth. It's only a partial truth. The fact of the matter is, I is not subject to being alive or dead. It is independent of being alive, independent of death. That is the truth, is what I have to understand. But in the meantime, it looks good enough. That's close enough. I don't mind to do any more than that. I'm alive. I'm happy that I'm alive. That's enough. So therefore, going back to what I was saying, that the I and the idea of I are very difficult to distinguish. Here, our Shastra says, and in fact, this is an interesting thing, Ishvara, the very designer of life, has made one thing possible where you can distinguish these two. Without that, nothing else is possible to make a distinction. And that is the state of deep sleep. In the state of the deep sleep, the idea of I is not there, but I is there. And as we were discussing with Ramananji's question also last time, where he was saying that is this a inference? And we were saying what the Shastra says, we have to really look into that. It is not an inference. The fact that when you wake up and you have a memory, a personal, intimate, direct memory that I had a nice sleep, I was happy. Even though I didn't see anything, you cannot have a recollection unless you have a collection. So that means I was there, but the idea of I was not there. And so it is very logical. This should give me enough Shraddha to investigate this further. And we'll talk about this, hopefully, I don't know if we'll have time to do this, on the next verse, which is called Shraddhavan Eva Labhate Jnanam. So we'll get into that in some detail. Shraddha. But here, the summary of the first line is Nahi jnanena sadrisham iha vidyate. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. So what it means is that as long as you are operating within the definition of the idea of I, you cannot have absolute pavitram. But absolute pavitram is possible if you can distinguish between the idea of I and I, and to understand that the I can have a reflection. You are only basing your idea of I based on your reflection. And in fact, there is a truth independent of your reflection. See, look at it this way. Our assessment of who we are and what our life is all based on the reflection. And the reflection may give me some idea of the real me, but it is not the real me. So the room space can give an idea of space, but it's not the space, as long as it confines itself to be the room space. It is and it isn't. Some of it is, some of it isn't. Similarly, my reflection also, it's not as though it is reflecting a monkey or an elephant. It's reflecting me, but not accurately enough. So in fact, the very possible that if I am, for example, looking at myself in a body of water, then I seem to be moving, because as the water ripples, then my reflection also ripples. And so if you conclude that I am also moving, this is not a correct assessment. It is because of the upadhi of the water that you're moving. Same thing is true for me. So when you say I am thinking, I am moving, it is not the I that is capable of moving. It cannot move. In fact, it is so full in the sense that it is nowhere the I is not there. At no circumstances the I is not there. No way. And this is the meaning of the word Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam eva avashishyate. This Purnam is the I, and it cannot move. So if you're looking at the reflection in the mirror, and your reflection is showing you to be moving, it is because of nothing to do with you, because it is the reflection. So similarly, the idea of I, and you're trying to, it's kind of like, so the pavitram through karma is like you are trying to make sure that the water is not moving. You look at that. This is exactly what it is. You're very disturbed about the water moving and making you look like as though you are in waves and you're in pieces. Or supposing this water is dirty and it doesn't really reflect you very well, you just want to clean the water as much as possible. This is what our life is. So we try to just remove any impediments to happiness. We keep on doing things here and there. So what Lord Krishna is saying is that there are limits. Person, there are limits. You cannot clean yourself that well. But the way to do that is to understand, to know and to understand that you cannot move. A space cannot move. No way. So Brahman, the Atma, cannot move. It's not subject to any modifications. And so if you have that understanding, that gives you total pavitratvam. Total pavitram. Another example of this really is that you're having, you're dreaming. And in the dream, you have a sequence where you did something not right and then people are angry at you in the dream. So in the dream, you have an idea of I. This is who I am. And then you have a number of other people that are also surrounding you with being, people and situations and so on. And you're all doing all of this and you're trying to resolve it, and then you're trying to argue, no, I didn't do this, and all of that. And you cannot completely convince everyone in the dream, and it's a nightmare. You're not sure what's going on. All of a sudden, you wake up from the dream. And when you wake up from the dream, imagine what happens. The dream idea of I is gone. And so when the dream idea of I is gone, everything else is gone. This is called total pavitram. You cannot, while you are in the dream, you cannot have total pavitram. But when you wake up from it, the whole thing disappears. So that's why it is ending with saying, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. That if you want total freedom, please see that you cannot be impure. If you want total purity, you should see that it's exactly like another thing, that supposing you are a room space, your idea of a space as being a room space, now you become very vulnerable. Supposing somebody is smoking a cigarette, which is a rare sight. I'm so happy to see how things have changed in the last 30, 40 years. But they remember the point where smoking was legal and everybody was smoking and so on. Supposing somebody is smoking, now the room space will say, I'm so smoky in here. Why are these people smoking? And I am very vulnerable. We should put up a sign saying, when you enter my room, you should not speak, you should not smoke. But people violate. Then there is pollution. Space has no such problem. The room space has a problem, but the space has no such problem. Why? Because it is at a higher level of reality. You cannot pollute space. So we say space pollution. But space says, I'm not polluted. Another thing is, for example, we ascribe color to space. It's a very interesting thing. Swami Dayananda used to say that. He says that for some reason, Ishvara has made infinity in blue color. Whenever infinity is shown, it is shown in blue color. Similarly, when you're looking at the ocean, which you cannot see the depth of, it is blue. You look at the sky, it is blue. So you may have an idea of the space as being blue, but the space is not blue. The idea of space is blue, but it's not blue. So really speaking, it's you wake up from the dream of the idea of I by really understanding the difference between I and the idea of I. You're free. You're done. That's what it is saying. He says, And he's being somewhat polite, Lord Krishna, by saying, polite because saying, like the purity of jnanam, karma does not have as, in fact what she should say is, you fool, karma cannot give you purity at all, maybe at a relative level. So, nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vidyate. And now we come to the second line. Tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. Oh, one other thing that is being pointed out, before we go to the second line, one other thing. It says that if you remove the ignorance between the I and the idea of the I, then you don't need to remove the effects of the ignorance separately. Everything goes automatically. Swami Maheswaranji gives this example. He says, supposing a couple gets a divorce. When you get divorced, your connection with your spouse's family also drops right away. You don't have to separately say, by the way, I'm writing to you as the nephew from a man's, my wife's nephew, I am divorcing you. And then you write to the grandchildren saying, I'm divorcing you all. You don't have to do that. You had some connection with your wife's family while you were married to them. You had to invite them for some things. If you got divorced, you don't have to worry about them. You don't have to invite them and nothing. So similarly, once the ignorance is removed, the effects of the ignorance are automatically gone. And this is a very important thing, because for a Jivan Mukta, one who is free while he's alive, once the ignorance of the I is removed, then the problems disappear automatically. They might be there in a minor way. You may have some physical problem, your body may still get sick, but your connection to the body is now severed. And there is absolutely no lingering effect, because you feel that I am independent from all the things. So this is another aspect of this. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram. Now let's go to the second line. So he says, the second line says, how will this knowledge take place? Knowledge of the difference between I and the idea of I. How is that going to happen? So there, and all this is very consistent throughout the Bhagavad Gita, and throughout, there's no discontinuity. You might present it in different ways, in different contexts and so on. It's very consistent. It's the consistency of the teaching is an important thing. Why? Because sometimes if we don't understand the teaching, we get into a blind spot where we say, I don't know, maybe I should do something else. But if you look at the consistency of what is to be achieved and what is the means of achieving it, consistently in all various Shastric books, and you said, there's no way to escape that. This is what I need to do. So here that is being given. So he says, how do I gain that knowledge? And so there, all of the previous karma yoga is brought in. Yoga samsiddha. Yoga samsiddha means, yogam here means all my karmas, my attitudes, and my study has to be maintained over a period of time. Kalena atmani vindati. Kalena means not casual, but a commitment towards the sadhana over a period of time. And kind of like, there's an example of, an interesting example. There's a woman who is pregnant with a child. And then there is a grandfather in the home. He's the father of this child. And he is close to death. And this is his first grandchild. And he really his wish was that I want to have a grandchild before I die. So everybody goes to the doctor and says, this old man is near his death. Can we expedite this pregnancy? Instead of making 9 months, can we make it 4 months? Let him die. We don't care what happens. There is a certain process of the pregnancy. Similarly, when you put a seed into the ground, is what happens with young children. I've had that experience with my grandkids. When you put some seed in the ground and you water it and so on. Next day they'll say, is it out yet? And you say, no, not yet. Next week. Next week they come and says, I don't see anything. I think let me dig it out. Say, don't touch it. It's happening. It's happening. Kalena vindati. There is a certain time for the seed to. So similarly here also, yoga samsiddha. Yoga samsiddha means your physical actions, and physical actions are to try to minimize your desire-prompted actions. Wouldn't it be nice if I did this? Let's pick up some new hobby. This is what is called kamya karma. Those have to be given up. This is number one. Then the nitya naimittika karma, which is the necessary things, occasional things that are required due to your duty in life. They have to be done. Without all of doing this one and all the rest of it, your appreciation of the distinction between the I and the idea of I will not happen. So this is what is called sadhana. Without the sadhana, you cannot have sadhya. And so all of this is going to come in the next verse called Shraddhavan eva labhate jnanam. And probably the way things are going, I don't think we'll do that next time. But you cannot suddenly say, who says it? Why should I do all of this? In fact, this is what happens. It has happened to all of us. When all this was given and say, this is very difficult to do. Nitya naimittika karma. Why can't I just study and then just get it by myself? You can study it, but nothing really happens. It remains as bookish knowledge. And if you want to really have your life be transformed, you have to go through all of these steps. And those same steps are called yoga samsiddha. So yoga samsiddha here means nitya naimittika karma. Then your attitudinal changes, first of all, is to speak the truth, not bend the truth. So this is what is called Ritam Vadishyami, Satyam Vadishyami. That your life should be simple and truthful, not clever. This is the thing. Our lives are tinged with cleverness. Be smart and figure out just how to make shortcuts. That is exactly the opposite thing that is required. To be open, to be trusting, to be transparent, and to be consistent between your thoughts and your actions, and all of that is an absolute necessity. So it is exactly like you cannot study quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics will not be clear, will not be clearly understood unless the basics of the quantum mechanics are also done. Similarly, this jnanam will not take place unless you are a simple, predictable, reliable, truthful person. Not possible. You may want to be a clever person and I can figure it out and so on. Not going to happen. So, nitya naimittika satyam ahimsa. Be sensitive to injuring others, both the physical injury and more importantly, verbal injury. Be very pleasant in your speech and be sensitive to others. Then comes Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. All of these things simply get you to the door of the learning. And if you don't do that, you won't even begin a class. But if you have sufficiently gathered all these sadhanas, then you are attracted to a class naturally. But once you're in the class, then some more things need to be done. Shravanam, then thinking about it, Nididhyasanam, and so Mananam, and then Nididhyasanam, where you actually apply it in your life in a very clear and direct way. All of that has to be done. It has to be done for a period of time. So this is what is called Garbhasthanam. This is like the pregnancy of the knowledge. You cannot expedite it. You cannot make it 4 months. You cannot do that. And Swami Dayanand used to say that he said you can pretend through meditation, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, now I feel very good, this, that or the other. When you really have not looked into the elements of that, nothing is going to happen when you come out of it. And in fact, it gets worse. Because then you start to blame and say, this doesn't work. My life, somebody just gave a beautiful example. He said, if there is, it's an example of how it can get even worse. So like, for example, the kids are playing outside and there's so much noise and you cannot tell the kids, hey, it is so noisy, what are you doing? He says, what noise? He says, fun. What noise are you talking about? But supposing you start doing meditation and you tell everybody, just be quiet, I'm doing meditation. And then the TVs have to be turned off and then suddenly the telephone rings and you becomes irritated. Why are people calling? And so on and so forth. There, the noise becomes even more of a problem. And so it says you cannot expedite it by just pretending I'm meditating or anything like this. You have to really look into that, in a very realistic fashion. If you do that, then And another thing, in the Yoga Samsiddha, you yourself will know when your understanding is becoming clearer. And it's very possible that others cannot tell. Others cannot tell. And here the example given, that's why I want to bring it out. Swami Maheshanji gave this example. He says, it's kind of like hunger and thirst. You feel hunger. Others may not. You can show some signs from which others can infer that you are hungry or thirsty. Similarly, you are the one that has to quench your thirst and to eat to cover your hunger, yourself. You have to do it. So similarly, the example given is that if you go to a priest and say, do this puja for me, you can do a puja and for some specific things. But unless your final goal of distinguishing between I and the idea of I is done by yourself, no one else can help you. And no one can even tell. You can never even tell. You just, it's very, very interesting that you can say, I think I'm becoming a better person. But nobody seems to notice it. People aren't complimenting me. And I'm becoming so tolerable. And part of the reason is you've been intolerable for so long that people forget that you are slightly tolerable than before. They don't, but you are very concerned. Is everybody noticing that I'm very tolerable now? Not going to happen. So you become tolerable for your own sake. You become quiet and peaceful for your own sake. No one else really needs to notice. Nobody bothers to notice. Nobody deserves to know that you are. It has nothing to do. It's kind of like you are the hungry person. You have to eat. And then you are the one who has to stop eating because otherwise people will say, hey, what's wrong with you? You're overeating today. You have to manage your own things yourself. So that's what is being said. This sadhana is really is for yourself, and you yourself will know that that I'm doing it the right way. Okay, one other thing. Let me see. I think we're pretty much done with this. So anyway, so I think that's pretty much it. So I think what you will find in the Bhagavad Gita, a emphasis on both what is to be done and how to do it. So this is what is called sadhya and sadhana. Sadhya and sadhana. Sadhya and sadhana. So here, the first line is the sadhya and the second line is the sadhana. And by the way, if you look at the line at the end of each chapter which we chanted today, Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidya Yoga Shastre. Brahma Vidya is the sadhya. And Yoga Shastra is the sadhana. And so this is a very complete book. It first of all says, here's where you need to go. This should be your goal. Because without reaching this goal, your life will stay incomplete. And also, please do not be discouraged. You may find some impediments, but here is the way to overcome those impediments. Here is the way to get there. It's called sadhana. So here, in summary, it says, Tat swayam yoga samsiddhaha kalena atmani vindati. Atmani vindati. Atmani here, it's interesting. So the word Atmani means, in this context, so it has to be interpreted properly, and Swami Paramarthananda did well. Here Atmani means in the mind. In the mind. Why is it saying that in the mind? Because the topic is pavitratvam, the purity. Atma doesn't need any pavitram. It is already self, it is constantly pavitram. Space cannot be polluted. But what can be polluted is the idea of space. And so here the mind is being looked upon as the patram, as the vessel for pavitram. That's why Atmani here refers to the mind of the person, not the Atma of the person. Anyway, I want to leave maybe a few minutes for questions, so I will stop at the verse number 38, and then we will look into 39 next week. Very interesting things to talk about there. Om asato ma satkamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, any questions? Yes, sir.
So this gets very difficult. Because if I'm able to separate the two, that this is real me.
Correct.
And this is the image, then the idea still remains, who is getting rid of this illusion? That is still another idea of I.
So what it is that the jiva, which is who I am, is really the idea of I. So the jiva is in fact I, but in a form which appears to be a limited I. Okay, and that is the beauty of the creation, that without creating anything fundamentally different, you create the idea of separation and limitation. So going back to our familiar example of the space and room space, so if the space, for example, had consciousness for a minute, this is called Chidakasha. This is really what it is. It's a Chidakasha. The Atma is a Chidakasha. Then it is possible for the Chidakasha appear in the form of a limited room space. It's possible. So the limited room space is what a jiva is. So the jiva only is defined in terms of who it is identified with. What is the conclusion? If the conclusion is that I'm just a room space, I'm the idea of the I, then you follow the laws of the room space, vulnerability, the fact that you can be polluted, all those kinds of things. If, on the other hand, the identification is made with the reality, with the I, with the space, then the jiva disappears. Disappears. Not a separate person. It never was separate to begin with, but it had the false identification that I'm separate. That's all. It's the same person. There's no reaching out, or there's no expansion or anything like that. So we have never been not free, but we think we are not free. That's what it is, something like that. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So do the Shastras say anything about, like, so the goal seems to be to realize self, right? And then once self is realized, then the Shastras say that like you're not the Sukshma Sharira is not doesn't take on another body again, right? So do the Shastras say anything about, like, why is that why is that a good goal to have, or why is, like, creation structured that way, so that, because it almost seems that the goal is to realize self, and as a result to deprecate a jiva, right, or for that jiva to not be born again. So why is, like, do the Shastras say anything about why that is a good goal to have, or why does that goal even, like, what's the purpose of that goal?
Well, the thing is that all the jivas, as we were discussing, which is what is called pranadhari. The jiva is defined as pranadhari, means one that is associated with being alive and has a sukshma sharira, as you mentioned, and so on and so forth. The very content of the jiva is that the very swarupa, not the content, the swarupa means the very nature of that jiva is that it is naturally free. Naturally free means that it is unfettered, unlimited. This is the swarupa. But the experiences are different. Our experience is that I'm limited, that I'm under pressure, that I may die, and all those kinds of things. So the nature never accepts itself unless it is understood to be what nature is. The example given is that, for example, the tail of a dog, the nature of the tail of dog is that it is bent. Or for example, the nature of a spring is that it comes to a steady state. If you pull a string, then it is under pressure to go back to its nature. Similarly, if you try to straighten out the tail of a dog, it's not the natural state. As soon as you remove it, it goes bent again. So similarly, the nature of jiva is complete happiness. Okay? But because of a false identification, it appears to be dukkhi. Okay? But even if it is dukkhi, the desire to be my own nature, which is that of happiness, is never lost. It's always there. So therefore, any kind of attempt to take up another body or to make progress in this body and all those kinds of things simply reflects my natural urge. There's nothing, the Shastra has nothing to say about that. It says you are already what you are, and no one has to teach you. For example, when our children are growing up, we can tell them, please don't eat dirt and so on, but we never say, do you know that you should be happy? The child will laugh at you. It says that you need to be free? No. Child knows it. That's why it doesn't want to hold the hands of the mother and father. It just wants to walk by itself. Even if it falls down, it says, don't hold me. I want to be free. And it wants to be happy. If it is wet, it is not happy. If it is hungry, it is not happy. So the happiness doesn't have to be taught because it is the very nature of all jivas. So Shastra doesn't have to come up with any kind of a false goal. Say, you've got to do this and nothing like that. It simply tells you how to do it, that's all. Something like that. But yeah, it's good that we should explore these kinds of things and be very clear about it.
Next Saturday class is on?
That's a good question. Somebody just mentioned it to me. I have to see. So let's look at that. So next Saturday, so when is Christmas again?
Tuesday.
Monday? So Saturday should be okay, right? It's 2 days removed from Christmas.
23.
You don't want to take a month off before Christmas. So I think that we will have it. If you want to stay home and celebrate Christmas, that's okay too. That's okay too.
But the Tuesday would be cancelled.
Tuesday will be cancelled. Tuesday will be cancelled. Thanks for reminding me. And then
New Year.
Not this Tuesday.
not this Tuesday.
Not this Tuesday.
No, the 25th, I guess. 26th?
Okay.
Maybe then it'll be okay. The Christmas will be over. Okay, we'll think about that. But what I was going to say was that 30th will be cancelled because of the aim for seva. We are going to be, a lot of us are going to be very busy with that. So 30th, I know we will not have a Saturday session. But 23rd, I think we'll have it. And Tuesday, I will look into that. Okay? All right. Thank you.